Hello everybody and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today we have this beautiful site in front of us. 5 motherboards pulled from machines, donated, e-waste. I don't exactly know where each individual board came from, outside of the fact that I have no idea if they work or not. So I figured what we would do next in this video is to go through the individual motherboards and see which ones work, which ones don't, what needs to be done to get them working again. If they don't work, are they salvageable, etc. Or, do they become a parts donor to other boards? As well as we'll determine if they are a good donor or not a donor, but a good candidate, I guess, for putting into another retro build. What can we do, in a future video with one of these boards or all of these boards, hopefully. So, I figured today what we'll do is we'll go over each individual board, what their components are, what we have as features, and we'll pop them in and see if we can get them to post. So let's get right to it. Okay, so here we are with our first motherboard, our first test subject of the day. I just love these motherboards. I love ASUS motherboards. I love the slot 1 motherboards. I just do. I just love the look of them, and I have a lot of great fond memories with these guys, working with them over the years, and just being very reliable boards is one of the things that I really enjoyed about these. So let's just take a look here. So we have an ASUS P3B-F motherboard, and it seems to be boasting 6 PCI slots along with 1 ISA slot. So lots of expandability there, and it looks like 1 AGP slot as well. And I mean, we have a bunch of jumpers on the board, no doubt to signify the CPU settings and other motherboard settings. Again, I have not gone into the manual for this board. You are seeing this as I do. And essentially, my understanding from the P3 series board, specifically this one, that I remember is that there were core voltages in the BIOS or the CMOS that you could adjust based on the CPU to try to overclock them and all those good things. The particular CPU that's in this system is looking to be a P3600. Is what is showing here. So that's really, really good to have. And I mean, we have a P3 1000, I believe, in our collection that we've shown already. So this is a nice addition to the collection as well. Another thing that I really liked about this particular board when I saw it is it has 4 DIMM slots. I mean, as opposed to 3 or 2. So it gives you greater expandability for memory when it comes to upgrading your board and things like that. So just a well-rounded board from what I'm seeing so far. And so we'll flip over to the I/O side of the board. Again, just look at that board, just really, really good looking. So we have our 2 PS2 slots, pretty standard by this time as well. We have our USB slot, which is great to have. 2 serial ports, 1 parallel port, and that's it. So no onboard audio, no onboard video. Which is really good, because then you could, having onboard audio and video, depending on what your use for the product is of course important. But I always loved having this, and that hence so much expansion that you have on this board to be able to hook up video cards, sound cards, and other expansion cards as you go. And I love the transition again. Even though PCI was much more advanced, and eventually AGP for video and all those good things, having the extra ISA slot really makes a world of difference for, some of those older cards that would work on these boards, as well as having the operating system and getting that, depending on the operating system you're using, of course. So I think what we'll do is we'll prepare the bench and get it ready to do a test. I'm just going to throw a monitor, keyboard, mouse, and of course power supply, and then see what we can do to just do a quick test on this and see if it even posts. And then we'll go from there. So let's get that started. Okay, and we're back, all set up here. So I just have our board on the bench, but it's risen a little bit just so I can put some cards in here, and it's on our anti-static map there, which is really good. So all I've gone ahead and done is connected the ATX power supply, which I know is working because I did. I took some advice from the channel and went out and got a power supply tester, so we were able to see that no problem. It was great to test that. So thank you for the suggestions on that. That made a big difference for testing power supplies. And sure enough, I found a few dead ones. So we may have saved a few motherboards. Okay, so what I'm going to do is use this video card for testing. This is an ATI Mach 64 video card. Just one of the PCI ones that I have that I know work. And I just want to throw that in the board. And yeah, just like that. And the other thing I'm going to do is I have a post analyzer card here. I just want to make sure that, you know, we're keeping an eye on the system, and if there's any issues or errors or things like that, then we are able to see them on this card, on the codes. And I'm also going to hook up the speaker to this. I don't have one of those button speakers that plug into the header. I have one on order. It just hasn't come for the video, and I didn't have time. Couldn't wait any longer because it takes quite a bit of time to film these and edit them and all those good things. So I just want to make sure I had that ready to go. And the other thing I don't have is an ATX to connect to the board to turn it on and off, a switch. So I'm going to do the old jump method here to test it. So again, so just to recap, we have our processor plugged in. Obviously, it was already plugged into the board at the beginning. We have our ATX power supply connected. I've checked and confirmed that the power supply is working fine, at least at the time just before we plugged it in. We have our ATI Mach 64 video card here. Just a VGA card is what we're using to connect. I may as well connect the monitor to that as we're speaking. And we also have the post analyzer card, which will give us any sort of errors, issues, and we're utilizing its onboard speaker to get any sort of post beeps as well. So I think it's important that we just continue to move forward and see what happens. Let's go ahead and turn the motherboard on. We have some post codes, which is great. We have post beep. What comes up on the screen? We have our CMOS, which is awesome. So it is giving us an indication that since you use a new CPU, probably because the battery on the board is dead, or reinstall your CPU, the system boots up at the CPU bus frequency. So we have an award BIOS here. Yeah, so it's just telling us it's defaulting to a safe setting. And we know it's a P3600. I mean, I can go in and select that, and it automatically goes in and selects as 100 frontside bus. So it is doing what it's supposed to do there. And so jumping back to the CMOS here, I mean, we're not going to have any drives connected. One of the things I will do, though, is for the sake of testing future boards, what I'd like to do is just get a IDE to CF adapter that directly plugs into the IDE port on the board, the header, as opposed to just like a big long cable and things like that, just to kind of clean things up. Just really love the look of this stuff when it's working. And, you know, we're testing it before it goes into a case. And there's been some comments down below is, you know, why you clean them before testing them, or, you know, why haven't you tested them before you put them in a case and things like that? Well, I mean, remember the E-Way series is a little different because we had different systems as is, and I really just wanted to test them just to see. And so here we are. We're in a good place. We're doing some testing. We're just because the situation allows it, where we have multiple systems, multiple boards, that we're able to test and be able to confirm before we actually go and start building some of these systems, because that's what I have in the back of my mind for future videos. So we have 128 megabytes of memory installed, which lines up with what's in there, which is great. I'm not going to bother changing the date. When it comes time to actually build this system, again, being a P3600, I am going to put a new CMOS battery in it and do what we need to do to get all these things going. So that looks good. Now, that said, I it's not responsive. The system right at this very moment is not responsive. It's locked into a standard state according to the postcodes, but it's not allowing me to change anything on the system. So let's just do a quick reset of this and see if there's an issue. It could be an issue with the memory. It could be an issue with the CPU, but my thoughts are it's something to do with the memory is why it's freezing. Okay, so what I've done is I swapped out this stick of memory. So we had 128 megabytes of memory, and then I popped in another stick of memory. SD-RAM that I had was 256. Now, that said, when I popped it back in, the system would not post. It had the same issue as before, where it was kind of sitting there. So it gave me the codes, of course. And so I went ahead and looked at it again, and sure enough, it said that the video card was acting up, which was kind of funny. So I used some contact cleaner again, and sure enough, in both slots, it's working just fine again. So, I mean, that's what we expect from these older systems, is that when you run into those problems, just use some contact cleaner and do some standard troubleshooting and see what you can do to get it up and running. So I think this board is a success. One thing I want to do is, I mean, we'll detect to make sure that it detects at 600 megahertz, which is truly what this processor is. But my understanding is that these boards are overclockable. And so I don't know what the range is for the P3600, to be quite honest with you. I know I've done a little bit of reading on it over time. There we go. Pentium 3600, no problem. And I'm going to go in the CMOS again. And I don't know how far you can push these guys before they start complaining. So if I go to manual, then choose the preset clock speeds, I'm just going to choose 112 just to see what we get out of it. And, you know, this might be a bit cavalier. You know, people might be saying, whoa, 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 what are you doing? You know, it's older hardware and things like that. But again, I know that we have the fan working just fine. I mean, I haven't checked anything else outside of that. And, you know, this board has the ability to do that. I know these processors are able to do that as well. So let's just do a quick reboot here and see what we can get out of the processor here. Still posting, which is great. And we have a Pentium 3 672 megahertz processor. Can we get it to 700? Let's go to advanced, and let's see. We have 112 is what we selected. Base speed is standard 100. Let's go to 115. Let's see if that's working for us. Let's save the changes and see what happens on post. Let's make sure it posts to begin with. It seems to be posting there. There's our beep. Pentium 3 690. What else can we squeeze out of it here? Again, there's a difference, I understand, between doing this, reading in the CMOS, and actually utilizing the processor to see if it's stable. I don't want to run it too long at those speeds without actually, you know, doing additional work to the cooling and all those good things. So I see 115. The next logical number up from that is 120 from what I see from our list here. So let's go 120 and do a quick reboot to see if we have it on the in the CMOS and see if it boots. And I'm not getting anything this time. So definitely that was pushing it a little bit too far. So we couldn't get to 600 or 700, sorry. Let's go and let's get that set back up to where it should be. Okay, I've just restarted the system here. And it's posting. And it's just posting back to the default speed, which is fine, which is 400. And we'll put it back to the 600 for now. Actually, I just want to go back into that screen for a second and show everybody. So we tried 100, worked fine. 103 worked, 112 worked, 115 worked, but 120 did not work. It froze, it locked the system up. So I don't know how far you can push these CPUs. So if you know how far you can push a Pentium 3 600 CPU, let me know in the comments. That would be great to know. And then it's just really cool, though, to see the range that you can go in through the CMOS versus going in and playing around with all the jumpers and things like that. But again, just for safety's sake, we'll keep it at the 600 and all those good things. And I know I've already done the changes there, but that's totally fine. Okay, so everything else looks good in here. And again, when it comes time to actually building this computer, we're going to go, we'll put this in the computer. We'll put this, build this in the proper system and get it exactly where we need to go by installing a bunch of different components, get this board seated in a proper case, and do some proper testing when it's all cleaned up. So let's go and get another motherboard on the bench and do additional testing. So this one gets a green check mark. Okay, and here we go with our other motherboard, number 2. And it looks like a great looking motherboard. It looks like an ECS N-Force 3. So, yeah, I mean, outside of, I'll be honest with you, I don't know much about this board. And I don't even know the CPU that is in this board, to be honest with you, just because I haven't taken off the CPU cooler and taken a look at any of that. Now, I did pop in a stick of memory. It is DDR400 memory. So I popped in a stick of 256 megabytes of memory into the board just for testing. And in terms of our IO shield here, our IO ports that we have, I do have the power supply connected there just because I think I got ahead of myself there a little bit. We have our PS2 ports here. We have our port 1, our COM port, serial port. We have our LPT port or our printer port. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 USB ports, built-in Ethernet, and built-in audio, which is a full-featured board. I'm not seeing any video card in here either, so you definitely need a video card to spin this guy up. And yeah, so I mean, it's looking pretty good. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 PCI. We have an AGP as well. And yeah, so I mean, we have our IDE, and no doubt that that battery is dead. So let's get our cards in here. Let me just scoot this over a little bit, just so we have room over the edge there. It's a nice thing about hanging down off the edge. I really need to build a proper test bench. That'll be a good little project for us to do. And we'll put our post analyzer card in there as well. I like the PCI side of this card only because less chance of us screwing it up when popping in the ISA side into an ISA slot. So we have our keyboard connected. We have our monitor connected with our Mach 64 ATI Mach 64 video card. We have our post analyzer card. So hopefully we'll get some beeps and things like that. We'll see what pops up on the screen. So let's test this. I'm getting something. That fan is super fast. And we have 7F and 7.8 as codes. So this BIOS is a Phoenix BIOS. Let's see what we have here. Okay, use our good old contact cleaner there. Don't want to keep on calling it Deoxit because it's not the brand name. I believe the third row is what turned the system on last time we jumped. Here we are. Getting a bunch of postcodes. And this time we're getting different ones. Numlock key is free and no problem. We're just not getting any video. And we're not getting any beeps though either. So I'm going to go ahead and swap the card or swap the RAM around, move the card down to another slot, and see if that makes any difference. Okay, so I've gone ahead and moved the post analyzer card down 1 or 2-ish to the bottom slot, and I have the other card there as well. And so I'm just going to swap these headers around just a little bit, just to see if we can get some sound out of that. Maybe just have the positive and negative swapped on the speaker header there. And so let's see what that happens to the VGA card here, because I have that bumped down as well, and see what comes in terms of the codes. Let's give that a little jump. And I gotta plug it in. Plug it in. Okay. There we are. I heard a little beep there. it indicates it's waiting for the video card to send signal back to the board to activate. And so I think what we'll do is swap out. I'm going to swap out the video card. I'm going to go, because this board has an AGP slot, I'm going to go with an AGP card as well, just to see if that'll make a difference. So let's get that set up. Okay, so I have an AGP card here. It's an ATI. It says it's a Radeon VE with 64 megs. Not looking for anything fancy. Our only goal here is just to get the boards posted and tested, just in terms of getting it, post is the number one thing, and then making sure that the basic functionality works. And then when we go to actually focus in on one of these boards, then we'll have a better understanding of what's going on. So that's the whole purpose of what we're trying to do today. Okay, we have the VGA connected there. We have our post card, and we have our video card. Now, let's go and turn this on. Do we get anything? Ah, we do have stuff. Good stuff. All right. There we are. So we have, let's zoom in here a little bit. We have an AMD Athlon 64 3200 plus. I know we did a previous video with a 3000 plus, so it's great to see that. It's detecting our 256 megabytes of memory, and it says that it's a single channel that we have in there. Not detecting any drives, obviously, that's fine. And there's the motherboard, the Enforce 3 A939 version 1 from 2005. Okay, let's go into our CMOS setup just to see what we have in here. Goodness, that fan is loud. It does have a PC health. How fast is that running? Well, it says 5100 RPM, but it just, anyway, I'm going to have to look at that as well. Before we go into that, let's just go through here and just take a look at this CMOS. So, I mean, it doesn't have a lot of features when it comes to, so it does have the ability, it looks like, to overclock. I'm not going to play with that this time. But it does have the ability, I guess, to go in and do that. So it's a 3200 plus CPU. I want to do additional research on that CPU first before starting to tweak some of these settings. I think might be a cool idea is when we go to put this board in a system, we can actually see what the safe range is in terms of overclocking. So I think that's would be awesome. So, I mean, we have it has RAID configuration as well. Oh, it must have built-on RAID. That's a nice feature to have in a board. And then our power. So, I mean, it looks like our 5 volt and our 12 volts looking great. I mean, we already know when it comes to the actual power supply because we tested it, but it's good to see that the voltages are all remaining where they should be. Now, one thing I will say is that I always found AMD processors to run slightly higher or hotter than their Intel counterparts. Now, obviously, this is a great monitoring tool to have, specifically around if you start tweaking the system for overclocking to watch what your temperature is running at. But I mean, the fan is not that dirty in this system, and it is running quite fast. At least I think it is. It's definitely loud, as you can pick up on the fan there. So, yes, I think we are in a good spot with this motherboard. So I'm going to give it a green light, a green check mark from the Retro Recall, and let's switch over to board number 3. And here we are with board number 3, and I just love this motherboard, to be honest with you. I love it because it's a socket 7 motherboard, I believe. Yeah, socket 7 in an ATX format. And I just love this motherboard because it really bridges AT to ATX. I mean, when my experiences have been usually AT boards running socket 7, but to have this motherboard in hand is just awesome, and I'm really hoping that we can get this going today. So we have the AOPEN AX59 Pro motherboard, and I remember AOPEN being I bought a lot of Aopen products, and I just found them budget friendly is why I did that. So again, I have no idea what this is. It looks like the CPU fan itself connects via the power supply, so I have to remember to do that. Let's see what we have here on the board. So we have all the jumper settings, it looks like, for various, let's see, definitely all the different voltages and things like that. So definitely good to be. I'm just hoping that it's already pre-configured. It looks like those jumpers are pretty firmly in there, which is really good. So it looks like we have an AGP slot. We have 4 PCI slots and 2 ISA slots. A well-rounded board in terms of expansion. We have our ATX connector. We have our floppy drive connector. We have our 2 IDE ports down here, which is great. And I'm looking at the caps, and that's one thing I have not been doing to all the other boards, I just realized, but hey, again, part of the adventure that we're on. And what's really awesome about this board as well is the fact that it has the DIMM and SIM slots for memory. Now, that said, it looks like the plastic on this other SIM slot here is kind of broken off there, so I'm hoping that we can get that, if we ever use that memory or have the ability to use the memory, that we can use that slot. If not, I mean, we have the DIMM slots there. So, and, anyway, just love the look of this. Okay, let's go over to the IO shield real quick and look. I mean, so we have some oxidation and things like that on here, but as you know, good old Dremel cleans all that up, no problem. So we have our PS2, we have our serial, we have our parallel, and we have 2 USB ports. So, I mean, this would be a solid, at least I think, a solid Windows 98 machine board, just because of the USB compatibility, the expandability that we have. I mean, even the Windows Millennium wouldn't be too bad. I know everyone's screaming again at me. I don't have an afixiation with Windows Millennium. I just think it got a bad rap. If you had the right hardware and had the right drivers, it worked. Anyway, that's my rant. Okay, so I think what we should do is plug in everything to this board. With regards to the ATX power supply. Actually, I'll get the RAM in there first, just because I know we have some. I have 64 megabytes of RAM that I'm going to pop in this PC100 memory. I think that's the oldest stuff that I have currently. And I know some of these boards were finicky when it came to what slot you used for the memory. Now, I'm doing this on camera. I did this off camera for my other ones, but I just love this board so much. I'm showing everybody the experience that I'm going through with this, and who knows, it might be just the bane of this video. This might be the one that just does not work. We have 5 motherboards to test, and we're on board number 3, and we've been very lucky so far, so that's really good. I'm just taking it in and out just to kind of work that contact cleaner in there, just to make sure we're good, because there's quite a bit of dirt from what I see inside that slot. So just important to get that kind of going there. Okay, so before I do anything further, I am going to connect the Molex connector. This power supply has an adapter for, it has an adapter for a SATA drive, so it's running off of one of the Molexes. So anyway, we found another one here. We'll get that connected. There we are. So we have that connected, which is great. We have our memory connected. And let's connect our ATX connection here. We have that connected. Let's get our video card connected. I'm going to use the ATI card again. I don't think there was an issue with the card. I think the issue was with something to do with the slot in that board. At least that's what I'm thinking, but we'll see. So we'll get that connected. Our post analyzer card as well. And we'll get that connected. Oh, good. We'll pop that in the bottom one so you guys can have a good visual of everything going on up there. And speaker. This time it actually gives me the plus and minus. The positive and the negative poles here. So we'll get that connected there, which is good. It's always good when I tell you. Okay, I think that is connected. Now we'll give it some juice. See if we have any magic smoke when we turn it on. And I don't have, oh, there it is. Okay, my jumper here. So let's go ahead and connect the board here and get it turned on. And it helps if I plug it in. You got to stop doing that. Okay, so at the power here, well, we have post. Is it that easy? Okay, yes, we have it. We have it going. Let's give you a better view of the monitor here and see what we have. And let's move everything up from underneath the camera. That'd be good. So we have a AMD K6-2 450 CPU. I haven't used one of those in years. And then we have our 64 megabytes of memory, which is working just fine. No keyboard is probably because I did not connect that keyboard while before connecting everything else. I was so focused on getting the other stuff connected. Okay, let's get that connected. There we go. Okay, there. The motherboard is not, or it's not complaining anymore. Let's go into our CMOS setup real quickly just to see what's inside here. So it's funny how you go backwards in time. This get more basic. I just noticed something on the actual motherboard itself. There is a date code right here that says January 6th of 2000 is when this was put together, at least. And so, I mean, you're talking the end of 99 and 2000. Yeah, just really cool to see. Okay, so our standard CMOS setup, obviously that's all good. It's detecting 64 megabytes of RAM, and here we are, January 2nd, 2000. Look at that. Automatically defaulted. I know we said the 6th, but it's close. And then we have all of our different setup features, and we have our, where you can go in and tweak all your RAM settings and your speeds and all those good things. Our power management, I don't usually do a lot in here, but it's good. I'm just playing around in here because I want the system to run for a few minutes. I don't just want to say, hey, we powered it up at post, let's turn it off and move to the next one. We did that in the first one where we were playing around with the CMOS settings and it had frozen on us. And that's what I want to see, is if it freezes, then I definitely want to try something differently. Now, I'll be honest with you. I expected a different processor in here. I don't know if I thought it was going to be a Pentium for sure. And it wasn't. So it definitely surprised me. And let's check our integrated peripherals. So we have, this is generally where you go in and adjust all the different things that are built on the board. Yeah, we don't have to change anything in there. Oh my goodness. We have a working motherboard. All I did, I didn't do anything. I put some deoxit or contact cleaner in the slot for the RAM, and I also put it in for the video card as well. And it seems to be working well. I say that, and here we are. See, this is exactly what I wanted to say. I asked it to restart, and we have nothing here. So what I'm seeing here is just C1 on the card, and I'm not getting any response from the, nothing. I'm not getting any response from the keyboard or anything. So I'm going to reseat the video card there just to see if that's causing us any grief. I'm getting better at remembering to plug that in. Yeah, see? Yeah, it's posting it. So I think there was just the way the video card is in the slot there. So we definitely have an issue there. So I don't know if there's an issue with this video card, because it didn't work in the other second board number 2. It worked in board number 1, froze, reseated the RAM, but I think I remember reseating the card too. It's very possible there's an issue with the actual video card. But we'll continue to work with it because it is displaying. And I just, right there, it did freeze on us when I did the reset, but I just reseated the card, and sure enough, it came back on again. So I'm going to say that this board is working. I think my issue is really related to my peripherals that I have connected with the expansion cards, whether it's going to be the RAM or that video card on the board. So it's one of those guys that are causing the grief for me, if at all. But it's great to see that this is fired up and working. So I think what we'll do now that we have that running, I just love the look of the CMOS on these boards from this era. And I just love open boards. Okay, yeah, so I think we are good with this board to give it a green light check mark from the Retro Recall. And I'm happy with the results of this. So let's move on to board number 4. Okay, here we are behind door number 4. We have another motherboard in front of us. This is another A-open board. We have an AX4SG-UN is the model of this particular motherboard. And I mean, quite colorful, that's for sure. It looks like we have the 5 PSI. We have an AGP slot as well. And yeah, we have our 4 slots. Again, another motherboard with 4 DIMM slots, which is great. And it looks to be DDR, I believe it's DDR400 memory. We have a CPU cooler on there that states Intel. So it's an Intel something. No idea yet, but we're going to find out. We're quite large capacitors there, that's for sure. Okay, so we have our PS2 ports here on our back shield. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 USB ports. We have our networking port, our serial. This particular motherboard has the built-on video, so I would say we'll just use that for testing. And we have our printer port as well and built-on audio. Now, one thing I did notice about this board is for whatever reason, the chipset heatsink that's supposed to be on here is missing. Not only is it missing, I see a mount right here for the heatsink to kind of connect to, but then the other mount is supposed to be right here, and you can see it's been like clearly just removed. Now, I don't know if the solder broke and just came out of there, but it looks like something I would have used with a solder sucker. And it's missing completely. So I have no idea what's going on there. Now, I imagine I can test this without doing any damage for too long. As long as we can just power the board up and test the board, and before I start going down the road of trying to find a replacement heatsink for this board. Okay, so we have all that. That's good. And I think what we'll do is just connect the power to the board here. A little awkward with the wiring, but that's okay. We'll get it as we always do. Just being positive, get everything connected, and it also has that 4-pin power connector there as well. And I think what we'll do is connect the onboard video, just because, well, first off, we don't have to worry about any issues. Well, ideally, worry about any issues with any sort of PCI slots. We'll figure all that out when we go to clean the board and put the expansion. Okay, so we have a red light on. That's a good sign. A really good sign that we have that. And I'll use the post analyzer card as well, just to make sure we have that connected. And we'll connect that to the speaker panel here, and just make sure I get the polarity correct here. Flip that on there. I think we're good to test. And let's see, where's my little very expensive device here. Now that die is getting pretty warm. I'm not liking that, I tell you. Let's see if I can... it cools off fairly quickly, though. I mean, it's just cold again. Okay, let's plug it in again, see if we get any sort of post. Just reseated the memory there. Yeah, we still have power on the board there. That's good. Keyboard lit up. Power rails all show good. And nothing. Okay, I'm going to try an external video card just to see. Well, you're going to use our old faithful AGP, because I believe that because we've tested that, we know that it works. And I've had better luck with it. So that's good news. And we'll see if that makes any difference for the posting of the system. Oh, that card was quite difficult to get in there. I just think it needs some time to come back to life, I tell you. Okay, flip it on again. And we're not getting any postcodes whatsoever. And outside of that chipset, I'm going to try a different stick of memory just to see if we get something. But again, it was acting the same way with that RAM as without. So let me see if I can find some more DDR memory here that will work for us. Okay, I found another stick of memory here, and I'm going to use, again, contact cleaner. Let me try a different slot this time. Maybe this board requires dual channel, I'm not sure. I don't think it does. Been pretty successful in all my years of testing and not having to worry about that. But again, I'd have to look up the board and see. We have that connected, powered up. Board light is on. Let's see if we get something. Nothing. Can this be our first one that we don't get working right away? Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to play with this anymore, only because I'm not one to give up easily. My concern is what I had mentioned earlier. Let's pop that out of there. That video card there. What I mentioned earlier, which was around the heatsink. I mean, that gets very hot very quickly. It cools down very quickly, but the fact that it's not dissipating any of the heat, I don't want to leave it on. And I'm not worried. I know I didn't do any damage to it, but the fact that it's not even giving me any codes on the post analyzer. So I want to spend some more time with this board and try out some different memory configurations and see what we can do to get that going. But I'd be willing to do it today on the video, but I have to leave it on longer than what I'm leaving it on for. And I don't want to do any damage, any additional damage to this board if it truly is that. Board number 4 is a wash at this time. Unfortunately, I am not pleased with that, of course, but it's one of those things. You know, we have 3 of the 4 boards so far that are going. We have 1 more to test, and but I mean that's a really good looking board. And you know, let's just find out what processor's on there. I'm just going to take off this, see if I can get that kind of off there. Let's see. It's an Intel, obviously, Pentium 4. Yeah, I'm very interested in getting that going. It says Pentium 4, 3 gigahertz. No, for sure. We definitely have to get this going. So I've just gotten even more determined to get this board going and see what happens. But I'm gonna try to find a makeshift heatsink or something I can just put on there with some thermal paste temporarily. Just so, again, just put it down there with some weight just to keep it dissipated. And look it up the original and see if I can find a replacement at the very least. So, okay, board number 4 doesn't get our stamp of approval for today. Let's switch over, but the board does because the Pentium 4 3 gigahertz. So I'm going to go ahead to board number 5. And we're back with board number 5. And again, it's another good looking board. At least I think so. Not as fancy and colorful, but definitely a board with lots of options here. So this board, I don't have a heatsink and fan on this board, so we can see what it is. Clearly, I'm seeing a Pentium 3 in there, but we'll touch on that in just a moment. So we have our video cards, our HP slot, and we have our 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 PCI slots. I don't know why my brain is going mush. And it looks like an AMR slot as well. And then we have our ISA slot. Again, I love the compatibility. I love when you have the 3 different interfaces, especially with boards of that era, just because you have a lot more ability to expand and change things around and all that stuff. And then we have, it looks like an award BIOS that we have. We have our 2 IDE and 1 floppy connector there. The capacitors, even though I haven't verbally announced them, but they seem to be just fine. It looks like we have a PC speaker buzzer there on the board already. I do have a header for a PC speaker, so hoping that that's fine. I do see a bent pin here, though, which I don't want to short out. So I'm just going to, if I can find my screwdriver, we'll be all set. I just want to get in there and move that pin over because, geez, that definitely, there we are. Get that out of the way. There. Get that straightened out again. And I do know about the pencil trick, the mechanical pencil, or you stick it down the pen and you can move them around. I just don't have that right this very second, and I just want to make sure. Now, that said, let's look around to make sure there's no other ones. Oh, yeah, see, look. This board had some damage. Hopefully that's not an indication of what we're about to get up to. Okay, I straightened that one out too. A couple of them were touching each other. And I'm just looking at the rest of the board to see if there's anything that I can see, and I don't. Okay, capacitors look good. The pins are no longer touching, so that's really good. Processor seated in there. I'm going to have, I'm going to look at my CPU coolers here on the side to see what I have. But I think I have one for that. And, we have a nice heatsink on our chipset, which is really good, which is what we're supposed to have. And that's what I'm talking about for the other one, just getting something off of maybe a donor board and see what we can get going. Okay, enough about the board. It seems that we have a limited I/O again, but it's meant for the expansion on the board, which is just fine. So we have a Pentium 3. We have a Pentium 3 1000. Look at that. That's awesome. Pentium 3 1000 coming our way. And again, these boards were either donated or they were scrap or whatever. I'm just going to take some thermal paste that we have here. Put a little dab on there. Nothing major. And that'll get should get us in a good position for it. So I did find, I have several sitting over here in the corner, so I do have that here. And so we'll pop that on as well. I'm seeing where the CPU connector, the power is. CPU fan goes right here on this header here. So we'll just do this accordingly to make sure that there's no issues getting this on. There is a certain way to do this though. So I'm just trying to make sure we're aligned properly here. Okay, so we have our fan installed, our CPU fan, our heatsink and all that stuff. This time I'm going to remember plugging in the PS2 keyboard, and we'll get that installed. There we are, and we'll get our power supply installed as well. I'm just going to shift it down just because it's probably easier to connect that way. There we are. These wires are always so tough. Not easy to maneuver. Okay, we have that in there. And this is SD RAM, I believe. And I'm just going to pop that in there. I'm not going to do anything fancy this time. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, then we'll put some stuff in the slot there. Contact cleaner in the slot. I know. I get a kick out of it myself. Now, I don't have the right AGB card here. So I'm going to pop in, just use our Mach 64 card that we have. And, we've gotten it working. I think the fuss that we're getting from it is just the slots and all that good stuff. And I'm just going to put in the post analyzer card for good measure. I'm not connecting the speaker this time because we do have a PC buzzer on here. I'm going to see if that works, functions, and all that good stuff. So let's plug in the power to the board. I don't see anything going crazy. You're getting mad at us, so that's good. Here we are. Do we get post first try? Postcodes are going. Oh my goodness. We got post first try. Look at that. Interesting though, it's detecting as a Pentium 3 500E processor. Is it the same issue we had earlier with the other processor where it defaults? It could be an issue where it's a jumper setting that's set incorrectly. Let's see. I'm going to look up the motherboard manual for this motherboard and see exactly what that setting is supposed to be at. Okay, and we're back, and we're in a different view for the reason of the jumper I noticed is off of the motherboard that says jumper free. So it's relying on the configuration up here on the dip switches, which is not what we want to do. We want to tell it to do what it's supposed to do. So I noticed that was off, and it was actually quite bent. I don't know why I didn't see that when we were analyzing it earlier. Anyway, we have it on there now. And the other thing I want to mention is I didn't give the model number of this board when we were talking earlier. So it's an Asus CU-V as in Victor 4X as in X-ray. So yeah, it's a pretty good looking board. And again, I didn't say that earlier because I forgot to read the model information. Let's go ahead and power it back up and see if we're able to get that going again. And yeah, we'll be in a better spot for it. There we are. Let's see if we get, I got lots of postcodes going there. Let's see if we get our 1000 megahertz. Yeah, there we go. There we go. We have our 1000 megahertz, everybody. Woo! all because of a jumper that was missing from the board. Now, I had to put on my Amazon wish list that I need some jumpers because I just stole that from the back of a CD-ROM drive. Guilty. Okay, and so it's just nice to see that in there now. Let's just make sure that it saves it and operates properly. I see the postcard doing what it's supposed to do. We have beep. Here we are. We have our Pentium 3 1000. That's exactly what's in this system. We have 128 megs of RAM. That's great. This is a great candidate, another great candidate motherboard. This is the way I want to leave this video. All working. Well, everybody, I think that was successful. We had 5 motherboards that were in this series. All 5 motherboards were either found from e-waste or donated to the channel. A whole bunch of different reasons how we were able to get them. And yeah, just really, really excited to have these boards in my possession. And we were able to get 4 out of the 5 working. And that is amazing in my eyes. And yeah, I mean, there's not much to say outside of the fact that we have a good variety of boards now. We know 4 out of the 5 work. I am convinced I'll get that 5th board working. I just need to do a little more troubleshooting once I get the heatsink for that system going. And we'll be in a better place to do that. So yeah, 4 out of 5. That gives us 4 opportunities now to build different retro PCs, different configurations. Let me know in the comments down below, based on the boards that you've seen through this particular video, if there's something that you would like me to build. If you say, oh, we have a Pentium 3 1000, can you please put in 256 megs of RAM or 512 megs of RAM, install Windows X, whatever Windows you want, and see if you can find a certain video card within a certain series and add another sound card to this, and et cetera, et cetera. You know, if you want to give me a configuration, I'll do what I can for an idea for a future video, and then I'll call you out in the video as to giving the credit for the idea of the video. So I think that's a really cool idea to do. That said, if you like today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. Hit the notification button as well. You'll be notified when I make new content such as this. Again, thank you to all my subscribers. Thank you to all the interaction in the comments. And thank you to everyone who supports this channel. I really appreciate it. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.